Alright y'all, welcome back to the channel and to some more buckshot testing. And I've got another combination out here today that we haven't tried yet, and one that I'm really curious to see what it actually does. Because in theory, it should give us some good results. But on the other hand, this setup has kind of struggled a little bit at times with buckshot. So I'm really curious to see what happens when we put these two together. So for the shell I've got out here today, I brought out some more of the Federal Premium Flight Control buckshot loads. These are a 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 9 pellet double up buck load that's moving about 1325. And if you have not seen it, we did a full kind of run through and test of these through my 1187. I'll leave the card above for that. That's definitely pretty interesting to see. But we determined that both the modified and the full choke gave us very similar patterns, and both very good looking patterns at 40 yards through that setup. So we know these shells can perform very well. So as for the setup I've brought out here to test it through today, I've got my Mossberg 835 Ulti-Mag out here again, but I threw in this choke. Now this is the stock full choke for the gun, which is usually what I use when it comes to buckshot loads. So it's where we're going to start out with for today's test, is a full choke. Now through this setup, those flight control wads may really help that buckshot through something like a modified choke or an improved cylinder choke a little bit better. But after seeing what we've tested previously, both the modified and the full choke do very well, and really kind of flip-flop back and forth as far as which one you think might be better. So we're going to start here with the full choke today, and we can go from there after we see what kind of results we get. But as for the test, we're going to do it the same way we usually do. I have a big paper setup down at 40 yards. I also have the chronograph, so we'll be able to see what kind of speed we're running. So we'll head up to the chronograph, we'll take our shot, we'll see what kind of speed we got, and then we'll go down range and actually look at how it patterned. And of course, I do have my templates out here as well, so we'll be able to lay those up and kind of get a reference as to how well they would have done in some different scenarios. So let's head up here to the chronograph and shoot this load and see what it actually can do for us through this 835, which has struggled at times with buckshot loads. Okay, so that shell gave us 1330 through the chrono. The box was claiming 1325, so we're right on the money, which is always a good thing to see, especially with kind of big name factory loaded ammunition that a lot of times doesn't tell you a realistic velocity on the box. So that's definitely a good thing to see. But how did they actually perform down range? Let's go take a look and see. Alright, so now we're down here at our 40 yard paper, and this is what we got. And I gotta say, it's not very impressive. Now, of course, that white dot in the middle was my point of aim, and we had 2 strung out down there, and the other 7 pellets all hit up here in the top right corner. So we do have all 9 pellets on this paper here, but as you can see, I mean, I felt good about where my shot placement was, and having a string like that is not really what we want to see or expected to see out of flight control buckshot. Now, yes, obviously, I think it deserves to be tested through some other chokes with a little bit less constriction, like a modified or improved cylinder, which we're probably going to absolutely do after seeing this. But either way, I mean, from what we've already tested, seeing how the full choke did in another setup, I would have expected a lot better than this. Now, the group that is up there in the top right isn't too terrible, but it's clearly kind of strung open a little bit here. So not at all kind of what I was hoping for or expecting to see here. And I don't even think the templates are going to do us all that well in this one either, because we really won't have a whole lot on there. I guess we'll take a look at like the 30-inch circle and the deer template just to see what they would look like, but I just don't think they're going to be all that useful or impressive looking. But let's start with that 30-inch circle and see what it gave us. Alright, so here's our 30-inch circle, and I'm just going to skip over the 10-inch circle because there would be like 1 pellet maybe within that. But clearly here within our 30-inch circle, we only have 5 of the 9 pellets, which is not very good. And of the 5, 4 of them are clearly up there towards the top right, and that 1 is strung down there low. So definitely not all that impressed here so far. But let's just skip right to the deer template here and see if you would have taken this particular shot on a deer, what would have actually happened. Okay, so here's our deer template, and as we can see, if we line it up with where our point of aim kind of would ideally want to be here, we have 4 that definitely hit this deer here, and 1 or 2 more up here that might have clipped something. But either way, out of those 4 that hit him right there for sure, I do think it would have been enough to take this deer, but it's definitely not impressive by any means here. We definitely have one that probably would have hit top of the lungs or maybe clipped the shoulder blade area, so that probably would have slowed him down quite a bit. But overall here, even though I think it's a dead deer, I am not impressed here at all. So I definitely think this deserves testing through several more chokes to see if it just is a thing with the 835, just not liking the flight control wad or something, or if it immediately does better through a different choke. I don't know. I definitely want to test that and see either way here. Okay, so here's the wad out of that shell, and as you can see, it's just your typical purpley colored flight control wad. Everything looks, absolutely perfect here. It doesn't look over constricted at all. No rips or tears or anything. It opened up pretty much as perfectly even as they normally do. Nothing stuck down in there, so I don't know on this one. Maybe it was that full choke just not getting along all that well, or maybe it's due to the 835 being an overboard shotgun. I really don't know, but I definitely would have expected better through a flight control setup like this. Alright y'all, well, what did you think about that right there? I know there's probably going to be several people that immediately run to the comments and say that I should have tested it through a cylinder or an improved cylinder choke, because that would have been immediately better results. And they may be right to some extent. But if you've seen the other video, then we already know that the modified choke and the full choke both perform very well, at least in my other 1187 setup here. So I would have expected at least a little bit better out of this. But leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments here. I definitely think it's worth testing it through some other constrictions in that 835, purely to see what happens. It may immediately wake itself up and be a very good pattern again, or it may just do this kind of stuff over and over again where it's just kind of strung out and not very impressive looking. And this is a perfectly good example of why you at least should test your setup and see what kind of patterns you're getting, whether it's buckshot, turkey loads, duck loads, anything like that, because you could think you have a really good setup but you're really shooting a pattern like that. But either way, we've got plenty more tests coming. Some new loads still that we haven't tried yet are going to be coming to the channel soon, so keep an eye out for those. We do have an Instagram as well as a new mailbox where you can send stuff to the channel if you would like to see stuff tested out. I'll leave all that information in the description for you if you're interested. But with that being said, I'm going to get back to the testing, so I'll see y'all in the next one.